There we go. Well, hello there, folks. It is 7:30 p.m. CST on the howdy bun on the 15th of August, and we are here in 2021 talking about magical burns. Hey there, Playful. How are you doing?
Good evening, Cass. I'm doing okay so far.
Well, great. We have been thinking about magic birds all day long, and let me tell you, we've got something to talk about. We've got some phoenixes, hippogriffs, and there's a bot. Let me get rid of that one for us. And you're gone. Okay. We've got crows, griffins, harpies, and ravens that we're speaking about today. So to begin with, you told me, and I'm very interested to hear in some of the research you've been doing today. What was your favorite thing that you researched so far?
I only researched the harpies and the phoenixes, but they both are mythological creatures. One of them is actually a Greek creature. I believe it was the phoenix. So that
Phoenixes.
came from mythology. Cannot talk tonight.
It's alright. Yeah, phoenixes have a historied tradition in media of being sort of explosive and fiery. And my favorite interpretation of the phoenix was from Harry Potter. There's a phoenix that you see. I think it's the third movie that burns and is engulfed in its own flames when it reaches a certain age, and then from the little ashes, a tiny little baby bird sprouts up, and I always found that very charming. But later on, I always get Gandalf and Dumbledore mixed up. Dumbledore, who is the biggest wizard basically in the world in that movie series, he clasps his hands together as it flies overhead and it just teleports him away. It's very striking. I love that scene. I'm not the
Yeah.
biggest Harry Potter guy, but Ella, hello, ding dong, right back to you.
Hi, Ella. Good to see you.
Ah,
And speaking of phoenixes, actually, compared to the Harry Potter, they actually had a movie, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix.
it's true. The Order of the Phoenix. Howdy there, Ella. Glad to have you. Order of the Phoenix is an association by name, and the name itself, I think, is more trying to sound cool than having anything specifically Phoenix related, maybe besides their iconography, but uh, it is a good name. Phoenix is a good word to put in any name. I do like, however, that you don't see phoenixes very often in Harry Potter or in a lot of other media. They're kind of scarcely used in many places, and that makes me feel more like they're kind of what's the word for it? They're kind of rare. You don't see them very often, but when you do see them, they're kind of crazy. They can do a lot. And in Final Fantasy, I believe, there is a item you can use called the Phoenix Down, and when you use it, down the feather of a phoenix, it can get you back into combat, back into action. It's a resurrection thing. The idea is almost that if you just have this piece of this bird, this one little piece, even that can grant you a substantial boon if used accordingly. That's something I'm interested in. What was the other thing that you researched, if you had any more to give?
I also researched the harpy.
Mm hmm.
There wasn't very much information given to me about harpies, but I got some information.
I have a very little understanding of harpies myself, but I'm more interested to hear about them by the second.
Harpy is actually also Greek mythology. Cool.
So I think harpies appear in several, and I don't know if it's Jason and the Argonauts, but harpies are in a lot of video games. They're in the Dragon's Dogma games. They're in Loop Hero, which is a much more recent game than Dragon's Dogma. And they always appear to be semi-sapient or sentient. And to the point where they're even kind of like creepy in how wise they are, maybe even evil. They've got a real nature to them, a kind of duality between animal and human being and person. And that duality lends them to have sort of a foot in both realms. And in Loop Hero, certainly, it makes them appear as if they know something special and won't share it without saying it in a riddle. And I suppose that might be more bird-like to seeing something that doesn't necessarily make sense to us, but to them is very easy to understand. And another good thing that I found in mythology, Norse mythology specifically, Odin, who is the All-Father, if anyone is familiar with that, he used to have two eyes. You know, everyone sees him with an eye patch. And the thing that he did is he was so obsessed with discovering new things and learning secret lore that he actually gave, I think it was his right eye, so that he could have control over ravens, specifically Hugin and Munin. And this is, yeah, I know it's why they call him the Raven God. And these two gods specifically, they watch over Midgard and bring information to Odin. You know, they're kind of like his scouts in a way. And I don't know if it's that he has exact control over their vision or their persons, but he is able to understand what they see and see it as if he's there. This plays a very strong part in the game. A strong part. It's like sort of a secret almost, now that I think about it, in the game God of War, the new one, where you have these spectral ravens flying around and you can throw your axe at them to get a bonus. I think it's a sort of collectible thing. But the idea of a magical raven or a magical crow, it does interest me. I don't think if I had to choose a familiar, I would choose a crow. I think I would choose not a raven either. We've talked about this before, but it's certainly, it's an idea. I think that I'm more interested in something like a land octopus. I've said this before. I could go on about this forever. But in Norse mythology, ravens often have a closeness to witchcraft. I think you can imagine a raven feather is certainly a powerful ritual object in that mythology. And hag ravens in Skyrim, which I've been playing more of recently, they are like a mixture between an old swamp woman witch and a raven sort of creature. And they're very smart, but also very mean. So mean, in fact, that they don't really care about anybody else, but their magical stuff that they're interested in. And they really do whatever they want to. And they're very unkind, to say the least. But certainly their feathers also grant you a boost if you can use them in making potions. So certainly these birds have a lot of interesting things going on with them. Oh, and actually we have two follows I'm going to mention. So thank you to Firewall42 for following, and we have one more I almost forgot to mention as well. This is our 49th follow. 49. Playful, we've been talking about this all day, you and I.
One more, and you've officially reached affiliate, Cass. Congratulations.
I won't congratulate anybody yet, but Lydian Handcroft, thank you so much for your follow. Even though I'm grateful that everyone seems to be very congratulatory, I'm happy about that, but I'm going to wait until I actually become an affiliate before I have any celebrations. And when that happens, we can have the Cass affiliate stream. is what I think Ella would want me to call it. But yeah, we'll talk about that more next cast talks probably. So, griffins. Griffins are a pretty powerful thing in D&D. In 5e, I remember there was this one time we fought a griffin, and when we had finished fighting it, I made steaks out of it, griffin steaks. Oh man, I remember that. I used to cook as my character, my orc character. I had an adamantium skillet. Can you believe it? It was a skillet that gave you a bonus to your meals when you cooked with it. I love that. So I'm gonna look this up and just so I can know exactly what kind of powers they have. So griffins, in Lord of the Rings, the griffins rescue Gandalf from atop the obsidian tower where Saruman has him captured for a while. And griffins, they're actually in this game called the War of the North. And they actually just speak. They can speak normally. They have total, like, sapience. They know that they're a griffin and they're fine with helping people. And they're actually very charming. So in 5th edition, I don't believe they can speak. They only have an intelligence of 2, so yeah, they can't speak. Certainly, though, the griffins in Lord of the Rings are not unintelligent in the slightest. They're actually very smart. They're more close to like dragon levels of smartness than animal levels of intelligence. Whereas in D&D, they are certainly just animals. Actually, they're referred to as monstrosities. So maybe they're not natural even. They're kind of like an actual monster class, almost. But I don't believe griffins exist in Harry Potter. I believe they're called hippogriffs. So a hippogriff in this setting is more like an animal than it is a sapient thing. They're more wild, and there's that time where I believe the name of the hippogriff is Buckbeak. Do you remember that? Have you seen those movies?
No, I never watched the Harry Potter movies, but I remember always seeing them on commercials.
So there is a very large creature, which is a hippogriff. It's very close to a griffin, and it is called Buckbeak. And they have an entire drama about the life of Buckbeak because of his attack of one of the students who deserved it. I mean, anyone who knows what I'm talking about, Malfoy deserved it. He was asking for it. I don't mean to victim blame, but if you've seen that scene, you know he was asking for it. And so, if a creature like that does wound a human, then certainly its life is in peril because of it. And there is a drama regarding what will happen next. But I believe that there's a scene where it is fishing. So, if you can imagine a giant bird having an interest in fish, what it does in the scene is it uses its finger, or one of its talon, what do you call the fingers on a bird? What are those called? Do you know, Playful?
Claws, I believe.
Claws. Okay, if that's true, it uses one of its talon claws, and it just hooks it in the water as it flies next to the surface, and it just catches a fish that way. Man, and I can only imagine catching fish on the back of a griffin is a splendid thing. And in World of Warcraft, the actual main transportation of the Alliance is by griffin. My dad, if I've seen maybe all the routes through my father playing World of Warcraft. He's played it and gone every route probably 100 times. And it is a special thing for the first time seeing your entrance into the dwarf capital, and I don't remember the name. I'm such a far away viewer of World of Warcraft. I've never really been that interested in it. But griffins, and hippogriffs for that matter, I imagine that they would make a very good pillow. You know what I mean? We talked about this, I believe, on the show yesterday, that there are some people that can actually use wild animals as pillows. So, the question is this, Playful. If you happen to be in a position to use a hippogriff as a pillow or a griffin, and let's say they were very kind and very docile and sweet, and maybe you even knew them, would you sleep on the back of or use a griffin as a pillow? Would you be okay with that?
As long as it didn't try to do anything funny, like just all of a sudden wake up and try and toss me somewhere. It's like,
Oh,
really?
yeah, I can
That would not be
imagine.
good.
I can imagine. They so there's this old tale, or maybe not tale, wisdom that I've heard that even the most docile animal has a wild side because
Exactly.
I mean there's still wild animals like bears. If you've ever seen trained bears, which circus bears are luckily much more rare now than they used to be. We had a story about that actually in one of our cast talks where they were talking about some of the last uh, Vietnamese circus bears had been retired to a lovely sanctuary uh, somewhere in Laos, I believe it was. And even like a very well trained, very dedicated, very veteran or venerable circus performing bear, it could at one point, for some reason or another, be triggered. And that trigger, whether it's like a color or the smell of food or raw meat, it could go berserk. Animals can just go berserk sometimes. And sometimes it's when they're in heat as well. Elephants in heat can be uh, pretty destructive just because they really are interested in finding a mate. And if they don't find it, if you've seen a cat in heat and you've seen how upset they can be at not finding a partner, it can be like that. They can just become very, uh, it, what's the word for it? Where you can't be consoled, inconsolable, and they just have to work out the violence from their system, which inevitably they do feel some kind of frustration, as I'm sure any animal would, not having a mate. And I'm sure that happens to hippogriffs too. Luckily, we don't see that in Harry Potter. What a sight it would be, though. I think I'd be okay with a griffin for a pillow, though. I would also be happy to. I, I think I'd be happy to lay on top of a griffin and sleep on them too. I think that if a griffin is deciding it wants to toss me around, what can I do? And if it's rather than sleeping on the ground, sleeping on a griffin is the only other option, I'll sleep on a griffin. I'm sure they're fur. Are there? Do they have fur or is it feathers? It's feathers, and then I think there's also fur because they're kind of like a lion. They're like a lion and a eagle
They're like
cross,
half lion, half bird,
half eagle, right?
eagle. Okay.
Yeah, half lion, half eagle. So I bet their fur, like not necessarily the feathers, but the fur is actually very soft. I bet you. Because lion fur, I've heard lion fur is kind of matted because they're in the wild so much,
Yeah.
but there's probably a special softness to it if you can find patches that aren't matted. Also, they lick themselves to unmat their fur as well. Some lions are just so gorgeous. If you've ever seen a lion that is like just like laying around and doing nothing and just like sort of waiting in the sun, maybe it's just eating or something. They have such a bored look, and there's nothing more. I guess you could say not dangerous, but uh, precarious, is that the right word, than a bored lion. Because a bored lion, who knows what they'll do? I mean, they might just decide that they want to go running around or attack something for sport. A bored hippogriff is probably similar. They're just not sure what to do, and they're looking for something to occupy their time. Certainly, though, I think I would rather have a bored hippogriff than a bored lion on my side. I don't know though. Lions look like they'd be very comfy to hug if they're willing to hug you, and they're cats. I love cats. I'm not sure how I feel about an eagle as a friend. Have you ever seen an eagle in real life, Playful?
I don't see them very often from where I'm around, but I do see them once in a while, and man, are they awesome creatures.
They're big. They're bigger than you think they are.
Oh yeah.
And we had one in the zoo nearby me. I don't think it was the national eagle. I think it was just a type of eagle, probably not as big. But seeing the person inside of the, what is that called? The interior of one of the preserves. They have this big, almost like a baseball catcher's glove, but it's all over their entire left arm. And they would just put their finger out and they would land on it. And they would, their hand would like shake a little bit because of the displacement of the weight and momentum. But those eagles, they just look so proud. I understand why eagles are the national bird, because they are just very proud and very noble looking. I guess, okay, so it would be really cool, right, if you were stranded somewhere and you had an eagle for a friend that would bring you food. Wouldn't that be great?
It would be awesome.
I know. Okay, what would you name your eagle friend? Do you have any ideas?
No, not really.
Oh, you want me to find a random name generator for you?
Sure.
Eagle name generator. Okay, so more. Rabaston. How do you like that for an eagle name?
A little strange, but cool.
Rabaston. It is a bit strange, isn't it? I think I would name mine. Let's see. I can't think of any either. Actually, I can't think of anything noble enough for an eagle.
Exactly. That's the
It's
hard part.
it's a hard part to do. Yeah, it's not easy. So we've talked about more birds than I actually was intending to, but I want to go back to harpies for a second. So harpies are birds and that they lay eggs. But if you think of a harpy, you think of like, do you think of the mountains or do you think of a forest?
Some would say probably the forest, but I don't think so.
It does sound like it might be a forest for its meals, but I think they live in the mountains, right? They make big old mountains, because
Yeah.
eagles live in the mountains too sometimes.
Yep, they do.
And I imagine that, gosh, imagine having like eagle vision where you can just see things perfectly from like a mile away. Oh my gosh. Uh, they're blessed with those big old eyes of theirs. But I imagine eagles and harpies as well, they probably have a specific way that they hunt. And maybe like harpies in Dungeons and Dragons or wherever you might find them, maybe they have like a, because they can scream. Harpies in Loop Hero at least can scream, and they can make you very anxious and afraid if they do so. Because seeing like a woman scream coming out of a bird body with a woman head, that does sound pretty scary to me. Especially if it's like kind of half animal, half woman. I think that for sure the idea of a bird screaming at you like a woman is unnerving, to say the least.
They're
So,
probably doing that as well, just to warn you, hey, keep away from my kids, kind of thing.
from the eggs, yeah, they're protecting the eggs. I I've said this before, but I think that there's a place in, like, I think it's like a kind of heaven that I can imagine is being an egg being sat on by like a very fluffy owl. I would not like to be a harpy egg though. I'll tell you that much.
Nope.
But yeah, okay, so do you think that an eagle butt is more comfy than an owl butt? Which do you think is comfier? To be
Maybe
the,
the eagle. I'm not sure exactly.
I don't know myself. If I had to choose, I think that owls live in lower altitudes than eagles. So I
Yeah.
think that they're not as cold. You wouldn't be as much of a cold egg. But I feel like an eagle, I mean, they're pretty big. They're bigger than owls usually. They have more coverage. It's silly. I wonder if they have bigger eggs too. If you're a bigger egg, then you would get less coverage overall. But maybe they don't have a brood. I don't know. How many eggs do eagles lay at once? It's weird thinking of eagles laying eggs.
I really do not know.
2 per nest. That's different than owls, which is like up to 4 per nest.
Yeah.
Yeah. The eggs hatch on or are very close to the 35th day. So owl eggs hatch much sooner than eagle eggs. So you're going to be spending a lot more time under that bud than you would be as an owl.
Yep.
So I guess the benefits and the risks are that it's very cold if you're an eagle egg, but you're probably bigger and you have a bigger butt to sit on top of you. But if you're an owl, it might be fluffier. I know owls can be very soft, and if you've ever had an owl close to you or you've ever pet one, it's difficult to kind of explain to you, but the feathers down well enough together that it almost feels kind of pillow-like in a way. It's very smooth. So I imagine it's very comfortable to be that egg. But you have like 4 other like brothers and sisters to contend with for the butt attention.
That is a little hard. Sure.
There's not enough room under that butt for all of you, so you have to hope that you get a little bit more than the others. Um,
Pretty much.
yeah. Okay, so if you're a griffin egg, griffins laying eggs. I don't know why. I don't imagine that griffins lay eggs, right? But they don't. They're not
That was
mammals.
even a little far fetched.
Yeah, they're not mammals though, so they do lay eggs. It's just like having a lion laying an egg like on top of you. I don't imagine a lion butt is as comfortable as an eagle or an owl. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. That's just my
That's
assumption.
just like a lot of our water creatures, like fish.
Yeah, yeah,
They
because
lay eggs and they're not mammals.
it's true.
They're amphibians.
Like
Or
octopus
whatever
lay
the heck.
octopus
Yeah.
lay eggs, and they're very protective of their eggs. There's this great documentary on Netflix called My Octopus Teacher, which I recommend everybody watch. It's very good. It made me cry at the end, but I cry at octopi at almost every opportunity. And there's this period where the octopus teacher has already laid her eggs, and she's in her cave with her clutch and her mate, and she looks like so tired, but also so happy and so wary of everything nearby because that is all their life right there going into those eggs. They don't live very long after they give birth to children. This particular type of octopus. So that's what they're all there for. But imagining stumbling onto like a griffin's nest, imagine how big those eggs are. That's a big egg. You could feed a whole village with
Yeah,
that.
they've got to be pretty huge.
That's a lot of protein. It's like an ostrich egg. There's this great episode of Man vs. Wild where he finds, I think it's an ostrich egg, and it's big. It's like bigger than like a football. It's really big. Imagine all the yolk inside of that. And so he's eating well for like a while. If you had a griffin egg, it feels really awful to imagine eating a griffin egg because it's not unfertilized. It's like a fertilized egg, and you're taking out a griffin doing that. So I'm not really happy with the idea, but I imagine that griffins probably don't lay very many eggs either. They seem very solitary. But I mean, if the lion bud is comfy, then I'm not against being a griffin egg. But I don't know. Owl just seems a little bit more. Seems a little more classy. Seems a little more. What's the right word for it? It seems more classic. Because I mean, nothing more
Mhm.
comfy than being an owl's egg. It's a pretty comfy place to be. I have a. Ever since I watched the movie Labyrinth, I've thought of barn owls. Have you seen that movie, Playful?
Mm, I have not.
I need to be more. I need to assume more that you haven't seen the movie I'm thinking of. I hate to do that, but I'm always like, oh, she must have seen this one, and then it's like I don't think you've ever seen any of the movies that I've mentioned. Have you?
Probably not, because, yeah.
You
Well,
you.
people grow up differently. We all know that.
It's true. It's true, and you just had less what's the right word for it? You had less proximity to the same movies that I have, which I've seen a ton of movies, and I there are barn owls in Labyrinth, and they're kind of creepy looking, aren't they? Just a little bit. Just because they don't have like there's nothing else in the world that looks like a barn owl. They look very specific, and I gosh, it can be creepy thinking about them. Their faces kind of like masks, but if I could have a like cute barn owl, they're very cute when they're what's the term for a baby bird? Do you know?
Not sure, but I know what you're talking
A
about.
chick? Is it a chick?
That's more like chicken
You think so?
kind of thing, I think. But I think you're on the right track there somewhere.
Okay, so
I'm not.
okay, so I there's actually different names for different birds. I don't know
Yeah,
what a baby owl would be though. Some of them are hatchlings, nestlings, fledglings, juveniles, subadult. Owlet. It's an owlet. Oh, I knew that already actually. I just didn't remember it. That's a very cute name, isn't it? Owlet.
that is kind of cute.
Yeah. Imagine like a there's these great giant owl people in D&D. I just remembered this. Some of them are very mean, but there's a few of them that are good, and they possess the ability to like wield weapons and stuff and wear armor. Reminds me of the Guardians of Garhole, if anyone remembers that. And the Guardians of Garhole, they talk about. There was a movie about it that I didn't watch because I read the book already and I didn't even finish that. But they're all about owls, and these owl people. I I'm not sure how I feel about like a half owl, half man. That's somehow creepier than like anything else I can think of on the things we've talked about so far. It's creepier than a harpy, half owl, half man. Like, right? Isn't that creepy?
It is a little creepy, for sure.
It feels creepier than half like vulture, half woman. It's like, especially if it was a barn owl and it had like the legs of a person, but like the face of a barn owl. That would be really bad. I wouldn't want to look at that. But it's like, that's creepy. It's messed up, and I certainly want to be sat on by that thing. But I think that if it's kind of like more barn owl than person, I think it becomes more okay. I just don't like the idea of them having like extended limbs like a human or opposable thumbs. That's just too much. No one wants that. I certainly wouldn't want to be a half barn owl, half like human or something. I want to be one or the other. I don't want to be some weird in between. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's just too strange.
It's too strange. Exactly. It's way too strange. I get the sensation that there are uh, a lot of strange mix-ups of animals and humans, like centaurs, minotaurs. We've talked about minotaurs a little bit on the May stream, and minotaurs are uh, they're kind of more animal than human. They've got like the human arms and chest and stuff, but I guess they are more human than animal. It's very strange. I don't like the idea of the mixture being asymmetrical, because then I'm kind of like, ooh, I don't know. That's the minotaur part. That's the bull part. That's the human part. I don't know. Maybe I want it to be more homogenous. I just want a bull. Minotaurs and centaurs are kind of okay with me though. They're kind of okay. And centaurs are also in Harry Potter. There's this great scene where the centaurs show up. The centaurs make an appearance twice in that series. I won't say when, but one time they're in CG, and I don't know if the second time is CG, but it looks better than the first one because it's later on in the series, later on in the adaptations.
Yeah.
And they're also very well spoken. They're like, Harry Potter, it is not safe for you here. You must go. They're like actual people, actual dudes. They just happen to be half horses and hang out in the forest, the evil forest. It's very surprising when they talk normally. I don't want to be some kind of speciesist, but when an owl or a griffin or a centaur talks to you normally, it's like, oh, they're a person. You know what I mean? And it's just a little strange. That's in no way trying to say that animals aren't people, but a talking animal is it's miraculous. And certainly, I feel that way when I think about animals talking to me. Okay, so if you could hear one kind of animal and like hear them talking, like whenever they say something, do you know what you would choose?
Not really.
You
I
don't,
mean, it would be cool to hear any animal kind of talk, to be honest.
but like an animal of any kind of species, nothing comes to mind.
Not really.
I think I would choose dogs because you can kind of understand what cats want. I feel like, but dogs, I mean, they just have so many attentions and they always pull you so many ways. I'd love to know what they're saying and thinking. I guess it would be pretty annoying if you could just hear the word hungry over and over again, like in a bark form. That would be pretty annoying.
Yeah, that would be a pain.
That would be a pain. Uh, and eagles, you hear like a high pitched whining, like hungry or food, and you would just hear that from like miles away, and you'd be like, oh my gosh, he's hungry again. He won't stop. So I guess that's like Doolittle syndrome, where you're like, I wish I couldn't hear animals talking anymore. This is not a gift; it's a curse. You don't want to get there. You don't want to ever be the superhero who's like, oh, I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have become a superhero. That's not for me. Okay, but like maybe a lion, because lions they only really make noise when they are specific about what they want. They don't like bark all the time. They kind of only make noise when they have to. I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
for sure.
Oh, not a parrot though. Oh my gosh, a parrot or like a parakeet. They would be so loud, or a toucan. Like they would just
And the parrot would never shut up.
they would never shut up. So many parrots and parakeets as well. I don't know exactly what kind, but they're very needy. They need like constant attention, or they get very depressed. It's why
Yeah.
you often have to have them in like they have to have their own caretaker sometimes, because if you don't like play with them and comb them, not comb them, groom them and feed them, like if you don't pay a lot of attention to them, then they get very unhappy. It's
Yep.
they're in desperate need of socialization, which I have felt that way before too. Actually, I've never been that needy where I'm like look at me, because they actually get like a look at me vibe, like just look at me,
Hmm.
I'm thinking about that video again. If you're listening to the sky, just look at me. But they they are very needy and they love attention. I've never been that needy before though, where I been actually like depressed because no one's looking at me. Maybe I have been a little bit, now and then. And I think that it's important to remember that all animals, they need attention of some kind. Simply just like parrots of some kinds, I don't remember which kind though, unfortunately, they need extra love. They need way more love than other animals do. I don't know how much affection lions need though. When they're cubs, they play around with each other.
I
You know,
didn't need as much affection as a lot of your everyday kind of animal, like a dog or a cat.
maybe I feel like lions, the lion pack, they're pretty substantially connected to each other, and they probably have a lot of smaller but equally satisfying and important things they do with each other. Things that we probably don't
Exactly.
understand yet. But it does seem like a lion needs to do less attention to each other, right? Than like than
Hmm.
like a parakeet especially, which needs constant attention. But cats in general are kind of more like blasé. They're kind of just like they'll take it or leave it.
They don't care, really.
They just if they want it, they want it, and if they don't care.
Exactly.
Oh, you gotta love it. Oh, I'm going back to the animal shelter this week, and
Nice.
yeah, I'm
Fun.
gonna. I know it's gonna be really fun. Actually, going back after having all this vertigo and being sick for about half a week.
Oh, yeah. Vertigo definitely sucked for you.
It was the sore
But
throat
I'm
that.
glad you're feeling better.
Thank you very much. It's only like 15% right now to 10%, so it's pretty good. And hopefully I won't get a sore throat again anytime soon. Go drink some tea though. I've got some right here. But the important thing is to remember that even if you're a tough, super griffin, whatever, super griffin, then even you need to be hugged every now and again, right? Every animal needs to be hugged now and again.
There's a
And
lot of animals that need hugs every day, but then, unfortunately, sadly, we kind of neglect them.
it's true. They don't get the
Like
hug
your
they need.
everyday animal. They all get neglected so bad, and some people just don't care.
Well, I think that the needs of the animals often get lost among the needs of the human being themselves. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's very easy to have happen because people have lives, people have, things that they love and they hate, and they're so wrapped up in their busy schedule. Oftentimes, they neglect those things that are very important. It's why people who are very busy oftentimes uh, get animals as a kind of escape from their job. But if they're already a workaholic, then their job is escape from their job. You know what I mean? Like that crazy logic where the only time you're relaxing is when you're at work, and the only time you're working is when you're relaxed. So it's like a never-ending cycle. And those kinds of people, I think an animal isn't right for them because they're already too into their job to really, like, they can't have love lives either. Some of them, unless it's a person who works at their job with them. You know what I mean? It has to be work related, or else they can't have romance, or unless they work with
Yeah,
animals.
they're just like,
Unless it's like something to do with their job, they just don't care.
yeah, exactly. It's a
I,
never-ending vicious cycle.
it is. I've actually been there back when I owned my Star Wars sim. I was really interested in everything Star Wars, and if it didn't have to do with like an in-character relationship or a role play I was trying to do, I was like, I don't know, this is not interesting to me, and
Just didn't really care
I didn't really care. I was like those
much.
lions, just like those lions, and I think being a workaholic is not really good for you in the long run because you build up a lot of intolerances to anything that isn't in like your blinders as far as goals or the next meeting or the
Oh,
next
for sure.
project, and you can really lose sight of actually seeing the world around you and seeing the awesome people and awesome things that exist on the planet Earth, which happened to me. I didn't see that I had so many friends who were there for me, and I didn't see that I had so many problems that I couldn't get away from. And it just it was a problem for me. Luckily, though, I got help. I got help before it was too late for me, and I have to say that speaking to someone, who was willing to listen and who wanted to help me, that was a big life changer for me. And sometimes that is an animal that you speak to. And if
Hmm.
that's somebody's reason for getting an animal, not because they think they need one, that's a reason that I could stand by. Because animals, it doesn't matter really what kind of animal. Animals are very discreet, and they almost never give you away. Though sometimes some animals do give away their owners, depending on the circumstance, of course. But I mean, if I had a cat, I'd tell them all sorts of things. I would share my life story with them, and animals, even if they don't care, they're still listening. They're just busy thinking about whatever they're thinking about at the same time. And even just having another creature to talk to, even if they can't hear you or listen or know what you're saying, it's still something, you know? That's something. And a lot of people just need to vent, even if it's to like their dog. They're like, oh, my day at work wasn't very good, but I'm glad to see you. Like, that's worth it. That's something. I want that someday. Not that I've ever had a bad time with Cast Talks, besides the time when it crashed halfway through. You remember that, I'm sure.
That was a real pain.
It was.
Un-
It was
Not under your control, but that was a pain.
sure, it was out of control, and it was a major pain because I didn't even get to finish that night. I was so frustrated. It was upsetting, and I got through the half-hour mark, but that is like almost a lost episode that I kind of scrapped because it's in like 3 parts or 4 parts, and I might upload it at some point, but it's kind of difficult to see it being worth it considering. I mean, nobody could even get into chat, and it's kind of just me talking to myself again, which I used to do that already back in the older streams. And I'm glad I got away from that because it's much more fun having, like, especially, you here talking to me, which I do enjoy, and chat being able to reply if they feel like it, which I enjoy
I
as
could
well.
even I could even do that on your Saturday streams, but that's usually more focused on something else.
Yeah, the focus of the Saturday stream is a little more general than these ones, which are very specific sometimes.
Exactly.
But I'm I'm glad we got to do this stream because last week we actually couldn't do our stream. I wasn't feeling good enough for it.
Yeah, but at least I warned everybody.
I'm
Which is
glad
a
that you
good thing.
did. I'm glad. And I think we've actually got a if we get a follower in the next like 2 days, we'll have probably enough average viewership to be affiliated, whatever you would call that. So I might look on Second Life for some people that are interested in following, which is sort of the thing that I do. And if I can make that work, then it would certainly be everything that we need. So I'm willing to probably spend tomorrow doing that, or some time of tomorrow doing that. I might go around places that I usually frequent. Though that might be fun. I haven't talked about birds before with anybody for a long time. But birds they're interesting. And a friend of mine, Dark Griffith, who is no longer with us, unfortunately, she loved birds. She had like 6 of them, I think, or something like that. And she loved animals. She loved keeping them and caring for them. And we're so much worse off without her. And I hope that wherever she is, that she knows that I miss her very much.
Wasn't she actually a mentor at SOS?
She was a mentor at SOS.
I thought so because I remember seeing a notice about that.
Yeah, it was a sad thing to hear. I don't want to make this stream about that, but I loved her, and she was a dear friend to me. But these things pass, and they go back and forth, and I haven't thought about her in a while. But thinking about her now, I do feel better about it than I used to. So that's something at least.
Yep.
And maybe I'll own a bird someday. I don't know what kind I would want to own though. Robins are cute though.
Oh, they are. Especially the red ones.
Oh, red robins. I love their. Oh, go ahead.
I kind of like the cardinal too.
Cardinals. I like those too. I love the mohawks on robins. Or are those cardinals? Those are cardinals. I think their mohawks are awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
It's strange that nature developed a mohawk for a bird because it was like, well, I don't know. I mean, they have to stand out somehow. Just make the hair do this, and the feathers somehow formed in the perfect shape for a rock band bird, the red bird with the rock band hair. Someone was like, "Wow, that's dope."
There's actually another bird out there that has a crazy hairstyle too.
It reminds me of
I
peacocks.
think it's the macaw.
The macaw. Let me check this out. I might put it on the screen real fast. Macaw, macaw. This is more of a parrot than a crazy hairstyle from what I'm seeing. I believe you though. I know where your mind's at. I just don't think it's quite. Macaw is like the is the typical parrot that everybody thinks of, like the red with the yellow and blue wing. That's the kind of parrot everyone thinks.
Yeah, those are pretty birds for sure.
They are pretty though. They're very pretty. Peacock. Peacocks are incredible. They male peacocks especially. They when they fan out and like they're trying to dazzle you. Who could have ever thought that a creature with that big of a wing bud would ever exist? Because it's like it gets so big that like anything that comes in here is like, what is happening? I gotta get out of here.
Yeah, you're like.
Anything that sees
they're
it.
just mostly gentle creatures.
To the point that they will mostly just be displaying themselves if they see like a big old crowd or someone that looks like kind of imposing. They will defend themselves, though, but they're not as nasty as ducks are or geese. Canadian geese are nasty. They will come after you. So we'll,
You think?
yeah,
Guess who has Canadian? Well, I don't have Canadian geese down my area, but guess who does have Canadian geese?
well, I do.
I do too.
Oh man, if you
Not mine. Not my area exactly, but I know that I've got Canadian geese somewhere in Ontario.
they're not as bad as cranes. Cranes are also very aggressive. I don't know. Maybe is it cranes or is it just the geese that are aggressive? One of those is nasty and will come after you. It will chase you down and like peck you and stuff. Some of them are and you can't fight back either. If you do, it's against the law. If you try to fight them, then you'll get arrested. If someone sees you doing it, of course. Which I don't know. I mean, if you get filmed doing it, someone will probably film you because that's just the way the world works. If someone sees like a person fighting a goose, then they'll film it, and then you'll get fined or worse. And hopefully that just doesn't happen. But yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible. They can bully you as much as they want, and with no repercussions really.
So they're basically protecting themselves. If you fight back, that is animal. To us, that's animal abuse.
It's cruelty, and it is unfortunate, but they call the shots, and the geese are in control. If the geese decide that you're no good and they come after you, all you can do is run. That's horrible. All you can do is run from them, because otherwise you will rue the day that you fought back.
Oh yeah.
Gosh, they're just so mean. I've seen them before. They're so mean. They just keep coming until like they feel like you've been bullied enough that they can leave you alone.
You're far enough away from their young or something.
Or something like that. Whatever sets them off. They have like a urge to like peck and swat and charge until they've gotten their aggression out or whatever. All right, folks. This has been great, but we've come to the end of our time. We're gonna finish up now. Anything else you want to add about Birds Playful?
That's basically it, but we basically covered everything.
We have covered quite a bit, haven't we? Well, thank you so much to Bun, who was here. I think she's still here now, and to Ella, who I don't believe is here anymore. And thank you everyone else who has shown up. Having 3 viewers this time was really great. Yes, we have improved the average even more. And I can't promise that we'll get affiliate this week or something like that. But certainly we have gotten very close. And we'll see. It may be next 2 days that we'll be getting it. We'll see. So, as always, thank you for joining me, Playful. You've been great. And you guys have a safe night. And take care. We'll see you next time. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.